Hi, welcome back to the Storehouses of Heaven Bible Study. We're doing Genesis chapter 5. We're going to read the whole chapter because it is a genealogy. It is the genealogy of Adam to Noah. And Noah comes from the line of Seth. So it's Adam has his first two sons. The first son, very wicked in his heart, eventually repents after murdering his brother, who was a righteous man, who his heart was towards God. And so Seth was God giving Adam and Eve, restoring their heart to them, taking that grief and restoring their heart. Now, we don't know if Adam and Eve had daughters before Seth was born, but we do know that Cain took a wife. So, excuse me, the timeline is a little fuzzy, and I know that God kind of makes certain things fuzzy for us for a reason, because then we could be a little too full of ourselves and say, well, I know this, and so therefore this. And there are certain things that God purposefully says, I am God, I know it, you don't need to know it. And so there are times when I just say, you know what? I'm okay not knowing something. And if I knew it, how would it change my perspective of the world? Remember, Adam and Eve are perfect DNA until they sinned. And then their DNA was changed to bring death into the world because of sin. And everyone's DNA from them is sin-filled. And so therefore the deterioration is going to begin. But it has not deteriorated so much that brothers and sisters cannot marry. The reason is, in part, populating the world. You just have to populate the world. There's no other way to do it. So God created mankind with that in mind. One man, one woman, married for life. Very clearly, married for life. Just them. Lamech, 7 generations later, was the first one to fall into the sin of multiple spouses. And of course, his heart was wicked and he murdered someone. So, and then he lied, saying, oh, whatever Cain was going to have, if they did that to me, is 7 times as bad. That was a lie. God never said that. A human said it. And, so he was just basically saying, well, I committed murder, and so therefore I'm more important than my great-grandfather, great, and I am God. I am pronouncing the sentence on anyone else. And yeah, no, nobody was buying it, I'm sure. But it does not say that anyone killed him. So I assume it worked. He also seems to have been a rather smooth talker. A lot of liars are. Okay, so Enosh, Seth's son, was 90 years old when he became the father of Canaan. Kenan. Kenan, or Canaan. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, but I'm going with Kenan. After the birth of Kenan, Enosh lived another 850 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Enosh lived 905 years, and then he died. Okay, here's another thing to remember. God is telling us their ages for a reason. He didn't have to tell us their ages, but he's telling us so we know the age of the earth, so we know the age of the world, and up to the point of the flood, and after the flood, because he also gives the genealogy there, but also he's giving us the genealogy so that we know Jesus's genealogy. So we know the genealogy of the world, and we know the genealogy of Jesus. This is what goes for the blood of Jesus. So the bloodline from Adam to Jesus is stated in the Bible. So you know living people, awesome people, sinful people, crazy people. But they were all people, and they were all loved by God, and they were all precious. But remember, Jesus and Noah did not come through Cain. That particular sin was not something that God wanted our world to have that bloodline through. Okay? So we saw Cain's bloodline. It was definitely a sinful bloodline. But here we're seeing Seth's bloodline. And Seth worshipped God. He was a godly man. And when he was born, that's when man called on God and called God by his name. And not just, gossiped about him, basically. So, when Kenan was 70 years old, he became the father of Mahalalel. After the birth of Mahalalel, yes, there are 3 L's in there, Kenan lived on another 840 years, and he had other sons and daughters. And Kenan lived 910 years, and then he died. My goodness, these people had such long lives. Can you imagine? Adam lived 930 years. He did bring death into the world, but he lived 930 years. And how crazy is that? That he sinned, he brought death into the world, but he still lived almost 1,000 years. Almost 1,000 years. And he had children for a very long time. So when Seth was born, Adam was 130 years old. That's crazy. Anyway, we're going to continue on. So Kenan lived to 910 years, and then he died. When Mahalalel was 65 years old, he became the father of Jared. After the birth of Jared, Mahalalel lived another 830 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Mahalalel lived 895 years, and then he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he became the father of Enoch. After the birth of Enoch, Jared lived another 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Jared lived 962 years, and then he died. When Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. You remember hearing about Methuselah? Oh, he's as old as Methuselah. Well, here's Methuselah. This is the reference that they are referencing to. After the birth of Methuselah, Enoch lived in the close fellowship with God for another 300 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Then one day, he disappeared because God took him. There are only 2 people who do not die in the Bible. Enoch is one of them. He walked with God. He spent time with God, and God kept him for 365 years. A year for each day of our current calendar. And think about this. Why did God take him so early? So the sin and the craziness of the world that was coming didn't touch him. God has a purpose for him, as you will see in Revelation. That's a long ways away, but he has a purpose, and he will come back because every man must die at least once. Every human must die at least once. Okay? A physical death, not just a spiritual death. If we live with Jesus, we have a forever spiritual life. Our spirit goes to heaven to be with God. If we reject Jesus, our spirit goes to hell. So, forever life or forever death, you choose. When Methuselah, Enoch's son, Enoch who was taken to heaven, was 187 years old, he became the father of Lamech. Now, this is like the second Lamech. Or is this? It may be that they spelled the names slightly differently. No. It is not. Okay, so the first Lamech was from Cain. I was just reading back. Yeah. So, when Lamech, the second Lamech, was 182 years old, he became the father of a son. Lamech named his son Noah. For he said, "May he bring us relief from our work, and for the painful labor of farming this ground that God has cursed. Noah is sounds like the term in Hebrew that can mean relief or comfort. So Noah was a relief to his father, a comfort to his father. After the birth of Noah, Lamech lived another 595 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Lamech lived 777 years, and then he died. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All right, that is the end of that.